Today, I'm diving into 10 players who are guaranteed to outperform their ADP in 2025. These guys are flying way too far under the radar, and if you draft them where they're currently going, you're going to steal value like the Grinch stole Christmas. Starting with Mike Evans, who's like the Tom Hanks of fantasy football. Zero scandals, but always delivers. This guy just wrapped up his 11th straight 1,000-yard season. Let that sink in. That's a full decade of dominance, and he's finished as a wide receiver 10, the wide receiver 13, the wide receiver 10, and the wide receiver 10 in points per game over the last 4 years. And somehow, he's being drafted as a wide receiver 20. Make that make sense. And this year, the Bucs have a lot of question marks at wide receiver. First of all, Chris Godwin is still recovering from an ankle injury. Second-year wide receiver Jalen McMillan, yes, he flashed last year, but he's still raw. And then there's rookie Emeka Egbuka, who's likely going to take time adjusting to NFL speed. So Evans could quite literally be walking into the highest target share he's seen in years. And he scored 8 or more touchdowns in 8 of his 11 seasons. Outside of injury, there is nothing stopping him from dropping another 1,100 yards and double-digit touchdowns. And if you draft Mike Evans as your wide receiver too, you're living the fantasy dream. I've been trying to write off Alvin Kamara for 2 straight seasons, and every time I try to close a book, he rips out another chapter. He doesn't run like he used to, sure, but in PPR leagues, that doesn't matter. He had 75 catches in 2023, 68 last year, and that's with just 13 and 14 games played. And outside of 2022, when the Saints completely forgot how to play football, Kamara has been a top 8 PPR running back in points per game every year of his career. And now in 2025, with a bottom-tier QB room, it's going to be check down city. Another 60-plus catch season feels almost automatic. Yet his ADP is running back 19. You're drafting a guy with real shot at top 10 production in round 5 or 6. That is an absolute fantasy football cheat code. Now, David Montgomery might be the fantasy version of chicken and rice. Not sexy, but absolutely gets the job done. Since joining Detroit, he's finished as RB15 and RB16 in points per game. And he's only played 14 games in each of those seasons. He's also scored a whopping 25 touchdowns over that span. Now, people are panicking about Ben Johnson leaving and assume Montgomery's usage will crater. But why? Dan Campbell loves this guy. He calls him their tone setter, and tone setters don't just ride the bench. Even if Gibbs gets more touches, and he might, Monty still owns the red zone. Behind a top-tier offensive line, all he needs is 12 to 15 touches a game to deliver double-digit fantasy points. And at running back 23, that's robbery. Sure, he may not have top 5 fantasy upside, but he's a low-cost running back 2 with a high weekly floor who can score a touchdown any given week. And Darnell Mooney is a perfect late-round pick with flex juice and weekly upside. Last year, he dealt with Kirk Cousins on one leg and still finished just 8 yards shy of 1,000 and was wide receiver 34 in points per game. Now he gets a full season of Michael Penix Jr. and a wide-open opportunity. The Falcons' passing tree is basically 2 branches, Drake London and Darnell Mooney. That's it. He's going to be on the field a ton. And he scored 13 or more fantasy points in 8 games last year and 17 or more in 5 games. That's legit production you're getting in the double-digit rounds. Yes, he's boom bust, but that's kind of what you want with a bench wide receiver. When bye weeks hit or injuries start to pile up and you need someone to pop, Mooney will be your guy. Let's talk about disrespect. Michael Pittman is being drafted as the wide receiver 50 behind his own teammate Josh Downs. That's absurd. Downs only plays in 3 wide receiver sets. Meanwhile, Pittman was on the field for 90% of the snaps last year, running routes on 93% of the dropbacks, while dealing with a serious back injury. This is a guy who had 3 straight top 24 finishes in points per game before last year. And now, reports say he's fully healthy heading into camp. He's still the alpha in Indy. And while we don't love the QBs, the volume is guaranteed. Getting the team's wide receiver 1, who has already shown he can be a top 20 fantasy option in round 9 or 10, that's not value, that is highway robbery. And if you're ready to get your fantasy football fix on and start drafting right now, you got to check out UnderdogFantasy.com. They have best ball drafts going on all offseason long, including their flagship Best Ball Mania 6, which is going to make multiple millionaires in 2025. Just go to UnderdogFantasy.com, join using promo code ENDGAME, because not only is that going to get you a free pick that you can use among any sport, but also up to $1,000 in bonus cash that you can use to start drafting right now. Jaden Higgins is your classic post-OTAs riser that no one is paying attention to yet. He's projected to start opposite Nico Collins in 2 wide receiver sets. Let me repeat that. He is their starting wide receiver in 2 wide receiver sets. And he's in one of the most high-powered young passing offenses in the league, yet he's going as wide receiver 52 off the board. Now in college, he played X wide receiver and he absolutely struggled against press coverage. But that's okay, because Nico is going to be the X wide receiver for the Texans, which means Higgins now gets to roam and attack zones where he thrives. Think of him like 2024's Jalen McMillan, only this time you get in before the breakout. If Higgins ends up running 80 to 90% of the routes from week 1, you're looking at a wide receiver who could easily finish 20 spots or more ahead of his ADP. Dak Prescott is the Rodney Dangerfield of fantasy QBs. This guy gets no respect. Before last year, Dak had 5 top 13 finishes in points per game and was top 9 in 4 of his last 6 seasons. But now, after a down 2024, he's being drafted as a QB 13. Yet in 2025, all the signs are pointing to him getting better. First, he has George Pickens joining the offense, finally giving him a true deep ball threat who can actually win one-on-ones. And second, they've improved this offensive line. Last year, they were 24th in pass block win rate, but it's clear the infrastructure is better. But the run game, well, that's still going to be terrible this year. That means more passing volume, more red zone looks, and more ceiling. Dak is absolutely being drafted at his floor, but this is a guy with top 5 upside, and that is a sweet spot for late round QBs. Now let's talk David Njoku, maybe the most disrespected tight end in fantasy. He's been top 8 in points per game for 3 straight seasons. Last year he was 5th in target share and 6th in target rate among tight ends. That's elite volume at a position where volume is king. And take a look at the Browns' depth chart. There's no dominant wide receiver 1 in this offense. Sorry, Jerry Jeudy truthers, but he's not a wide receiver 1. Njoku is going to be that guy at the tight end position. Draft him late, skip early tight end, and walk away with a top 6 player at that position that you get very late in your fantasy drafts. Now let me sell you on the J.K. Dobbins comeback tour. After yet another injury, J.K. Dobbins came back last year and dropped nearly 1,000 total yards and 9 touchdowns in just 13 games. And now he lands in Denver, where Sean Payton has always leaned on multiple backs, but always gives the trustworthy vet the first shot. Look, RJ Harvey is talented, but rookies have to earn playing time under Payton. And the injury Dobbins suffered last year wasn't major, and reports out of Denver are positive. He's going to get early season touches, red zone work, and if he looks anything like 2024, he's going to be hard for Payton to bench. And yet right now, he's being drafted as the running back 39. That's criminal. Outside of a major injury, he's a lock for a top 30 running back or better in 2025. And finally, Justin Herbert, aka the Forgotten Elite. He's never finished worse than QB 15 in points per game. Even last year, when he suffered a high ankle sprain in week 3, he still threw for nearly 3,800 yards and 23 touchdowns. But here's why I love him in 2025. Chargers OC Greg Roman has openly said they plan to let Herbert run more this year. With that high ankle sprain, he hardly ran early in the season last year. But from weeks 10 to 18, when he was no longer on the injury report, he had 5 games with 30 or more rushing yards. Give Herbert a full year of mobility, and you're looking at potentially 500 rushing yards. To go with a guy we know can throw for 4,000 plus yards and 30 plus touchdowns. That's the profile of a top 5 QB, and he's basically going undrafted in most leagues. He's a perfect late round QB cheat code that can win you a fantasy league in 2025. Those 10 players are going to obliterate their ADP in 2025, but if you want to obliterate your draft and your league mates, you need more information than just this, but we got you covered. Everything you need in our 2025 video playlist. You can find it right here.